Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. This is your host, Travis and Jon. Jon, how you doing today?
I'm doing excellent today.
We have a very special, very special episode today. Finally, we have our professor on. How you doing today, Professor?
Good.
Thanks
for having me.
No problem at all, man. We've been looking forward to this one. I'm actually kind of nervous. Is that
I'm
weird?
nervous. I'm the one that's nervous.
So before we get on to anything further, guys, please remember to go like our Facebook page, subscribe to us on like our Instagram page, follow us on Facebook, like and subscribe, do all that stuff, all the social media and whatnot, and on your favorite platform. So, but without further ado, Jon, what's the beverage of the day?
Today we have the Atomizer.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying that right? Looks like it's an IPA, 7% alcohol by volume. It's not too hoppy.
It's not bad.
I was worried when I first saw it. Cause like, ooh, green. That's gonna be like I'm drinking a pine cone, but not at all. It's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, I got it because it had some kind of a science feel to it. Maybe
Yeah, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
get some technology in there.
Yeah.
Full Sail Brewing. Yeah, it's pretty good.
This
I like
is good.
it.
Where'd you pick this up at?
At Rite Aid.
Rite Aid?
With the ice cream, yeah.
Oh, you brought ice cream?
Yeah, because I don't drink, so and I'm not gonna judge people that do. So I brought you guys the beer, but I do ice cream. So Thrifty's ice cream. For all the listeners out there, if you haven't tried it, it's like one of the best ice creams out there.
Really?
Yeah. So a long time ago, before Rite Aid was Rite Aid, it used to be Thrifty's drugstores, and some of the Thrifty's drugstores used to have and this was in the 80s, right? They used to have like these little ice cream sections where you would scoop it out, and that was the only way that you could get it. And it was like 25 cents for a cone. And now, because they don't have Thrifty's anymore, they still have the ice cream. So
I've never seen the ice cream till you just brought it.
Yeah.
Thrifty's, is that the one with the Indian on the front of it?
No.
Or
No. That's so Thrifty's is like it was a West Coast chain, and I don't think because you grew up in the East Coast, right?
No, I grew up in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It might have been there too. And then
I'd never seen it. It's Bluebell where I'm from, Louisiana.
oh yeah.
Everything's
Bluebell's
Bluebell.
so good, man.
Winn-Dixie at your grocery store.
Or Piggly Wiggly, right?
Yeah, or Piggly Wiggly. That is correct. That is for sure.
Yeah, and then Professor's over here drinking bubbly.
That's right.
Which flavor bubbly is that?
This is the strawberry bubbly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just bought a container because I saw you drinking it at the office, and I was like, bubbly, is that like the stevia soda? And I tried it. I was like, oh no, this is sparkling water.
Purely water.
No sugar.
I was like, it's not
here.
bad. I got the black cherry flavored one, and I was like, Charles, you want to try some of my soda? And he saw it. He's like, I do not like bubbly. I was like, well, I couldn't get him on that one.
That it's safe for you to buy, and it'll always be there.
That's true. I actually drank one on the way here. I got the little mini cans, and I was like, it's perfect.
Hey, and just you guys don't have to be as formal. Like classroom, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. But I'm good either way.
All right, so are we gonna go Alvin, Al?
Yeah,
or?
Al. I go by Al or Alvin, either way.
I'll go Al.
I'll go Al.
There you go. I was gonna tell you, and I just go by Jon. I'm good.
Oh, okay.
That's just my Travis. No big deal.
We got to shorten Travis somehow, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right. Well, Al, you want to tell us a little bit about your background? What got you into jiu-jitsu and just a little brief history?
So I guess the martial arts part of it was, I think I would say that my jiu-jitsu is not just like jiu-jitsu. I think for all my martial arts, it all kind of like jiu-jitsu kind of culminates everything together, right?
Right.
So when I started, the first martial art I started was arnis, was the Filipino stick fighting, and that was in about would have been the 8th grade, somewhere around there. And then I did that for a couple of years, and then in high school I wrestled for 3 years. And then I did and after high school, that's kind of when UFC started coming out. Like the first UFCs were when I graduated, and that was the first time that I was exposed to jiu-jitsu, and seeing it in that light, I was turned off by it.
Really?
It was just too a little bit too. I think UFC. It was really UFC in general was just a little bit too rough. So I didn't really understand what jiu-jitsu, what Brazilian jiu-jitsu was, until much later in life. So instead of doing jiu-jitsu, I saw it and I was kind of like intrigued by it, but because of the UFC, platform at the time, it was a little bit too violent for me. I didn't like it wasn't so much of martial art. Just to me, it looked like just a bunch of dudes just pounding at each other. Right. So there was I didn't really appreciate the artistry part of it. Right. So I did, instead of jiu-jitsu, I ended up doing Aikido for a couple of years. And so even today, like some of the grip breaking that you guys that I try to teach, some of the wrist locks that I try to teach is actually more jiu-jitsu based or aikido based than the Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And so a couple years after that, I got into college. In college, I learned I was boxing for 3 years, and in that time, like you look at the foot movement that we're standing. So like the foot movement that we do that I do now is kind of a little bit of boxing, a little bit of the arnis, the Filipino stick fighting, because it's very similar, right? And then a lot of the wrestling that I did in high school, and so and this was so I graduated in from college in '99. I stopped boxing in '98. So the last year of college, I did a year of judo, which I wasn't really too devoted to. It was just something that like kind of was a fun sport for me. But I think looking back on it, I probably should have embraced it a little bit more,
Right.
Because there's a lot of carryover, and you know it's just a good way to learn how to move your body, so that kind of takes us to '99 after all those training sessions, and from about '99 until it probably been like 2009. So, you know, I really didn't do any like anything formal. I did do maybe a year of karate with my kids because my son started. Austin was about 3 years old, and we started them in a karate class, and I did a couple of years. I mean, it was fun. Kind of acquaint myself with like the punching and stuff like that. But we also did katas, which I mean I thought was cool, but you know the practicality of it I just didn't really appreciate. I mean I liked it because I could still get a cardio workout out of it and all that kind of stuff. But you know just the applying it to an actual fight, you know, there's just a little bit of a gap there. I thought.
We literally just said the same thing with Nate on Friday. We were talking about practicality and like Taekwondo and like the kata and stuff like that. And the big difference between jiu-jitsu is practicality, right?
Yeah.
Like we do everything that's supposed to work in some sort of situation.
Yeah,
you know
and I'm not saying that karate won't work or even like Taekwondo. Like I watched the video with Joe Rogan on it, and he talks about how like if you do pure Taekwondo and then transition to something else, like you have such an arsenal at your disposal, right? That other martial arts will not give you because Taekwondo is such. Because you have to use your feet. You basically have to use your feet, right? So it forces you to do things in different ways that people are not used to. Mm-hmm. And so you know, I mean, I'm not saying that those are not good martial arts.
Oh yeah.
But for me, like I just I mean, I didn't see that. I didn't make that transition, right? So in what do I would say about right around 2009, like I said, I started jiu-jitsu again. Or I started jiu-jitsu, period. I was kind of looking for something because I learned about a little bit more in that, you know, because it's like a grappling art, grappling martial art. So that drew me to it initially. And at the time, I was kind of more interested in it for just like the grappling part of it, right? And I looked in a couple of schools, and I was in Hawaii at the time. And in Hawaii, it wasn't, it were like maybe there were like 3 schools on the island at the time. And one of them, I went into one, and they were using sticks, like the same like Arnis sticks that you know that I practiced with, you know, 20 years earlier. And then I went to another one. It was strictly the grappling part of it, and you know, I see the value to both, but I wasn't ready for the stick part of it just yet. So I went to that other school with, and it started off as a Gracie Baja school, and then from there, you know, moved around a little bit more throughout the States, stuck with jiu-jitsu the whole time, ended up in Okinawa where I trained for like the last 4 years. And then I kind of roamed around a little bit between coming up here to Silverdale, to the Pacific Northwest, and my retirement from Okinawa. So, it takes us here today.
Yeah, that's a way more.
Wow,
in-depth
yeah. I didn't know you had all that in the background.
Yeah, like I didn't. Not saying I just didn't expect you to have that much martial arts background.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where I think like just the life experience, like
Yeah.
what I like about jiu-jitsu, and I was thinking about this on the way over, was like every aspect of my life. One of the reasons why I like jiu-jitsu so much is that it kind of combines everything that I've kind of done. Everything. I mean, even my time in the Navy, like in the Navy, I learned basically how to run a training program, right, and how to deal with like people and youngsters and that kind of thing, and I can use that every day that I come to jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, the training plans that you guys that we build for the classes, that's like the structure of that, the formatting of that is all based off of what I learned in the Navy, right?
Right.
Even the format of like crawl, walk, run,
Right. Yeah.
start low, get the basics, get the basic movements down, practice that, and then you start putting them all together. And but yeah, that's all kind of I mean, everything like that. Jiu-jitsu is I mean, it sounds cliche, but it is life, right? I mean,
Right.
it brings everything together. So.
Right. Yeah, when we were doing the like self-defense stuff the other day in class, John and I were commenting, and I was like, John, Professor looks like he has a little bit of like striking background in because like you could tell the difference of like someone that knows how to strike and then someone that just throws punches. You know what I mean? Like the way you turn your hips, you pivot on your feet, right? You follow through with it. I was like, Professor looked like he knows what he's doing over there. I was like, what is this? And now it's knowing that you have a background in boxing, it makes perfectly good sense.
Yeah, and even
So,
actually, what I didn't mention also is I actually did like even before I started the Filipino stick fighting, I did about a year of Shaolin Kung Fu, right? And so if you look at some of the stretches, some of the deep base stances that we do,
yeah.
I mean, I think I even showed you guys like for that arm drag, right? That little cross step.
Yep.
Right. That's actually like what I practice. Like it didn't come from wrestling so much that like that step actually came from that Kung Fu that I started way back in the day.
I was wondering if him and Blaine might have trained together in Hawaii, because wasn't Blaine down there at the same time
Blaine
training?
was an officer
And
also.
I thought
What's his last name?
I have him on Facebook.
He's
Well,
he's a brown belt we trained with in
white
Japan.
guy covered in tattoos.
I don't know.
I don't know if he was down there the same time though.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Remember, he said there was very few schools on Hawaii when he was down there.
Yeah, this was in like 2009-ish. I left Hawaii in 2012. So yeah, around that time frame.
Yeah, I didn't know you had all that in the background either. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm a little older, so
Well, you got me by a couple.
I got a couple. Yeah.
Jeremy Blaine, that's his name.
Oh, his last name is Blaine. Dang, he looks young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's in his mid-30s.
Oh,
He's a warrant.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't know.
He was our brown belt out in Japan while we were out there.
Oh, nice.
And he talks about how he grew up in Hawaii pretty much like in his jiu-jitsu life, and how, being the white guy, they would just smash him.
Yeah.
He's like being the Howley, that people don't really, especially when you go to like a Islander school, they're like, they don't really like you there.
No.
So he's like, so I got smashed for my first 4 or 5 years of jiu-jitsu, but he's like, it made my game the way it is now. It's a very MMA based game. So that's cool. What if you could rank all the martial arts that you've done, what would your like top 3 be?
That's kind of really hard to say, right? Because everyone has I pull something from everything, right? And if you say like it's like kids, right? Like you don't have a favorite.
You don't have a favorite kid.
But
I don't. Absolutely, I don't.
No.
But you have things in one that you like over the other. You know what I'm saying?
There's like no good way of saying it though. Like when you refer to kids.
I just wonder how Austin and Jada and Jada
they're gonna listen to this.
They listen to this,
looking at each other.
But like I said, it was that there's things that you can take away from each of them, that you can incorporate into your life,
right?
And even more than just jiu-jitsu, but just in your life in general, But of course, I'm gonna favor jiu-jitsu just because I understand it a lot more than the other ones. I would say So I do have a favorite, I guess. It's jiu-jitsu. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, I know I miss boxing. I used to dabble in that a bit.
Yeah.
And we talk about it all the time. I was like, man, if I had a little bit more time in my schedule, I'd try to fit that in once or twice a week.
Oh yeah.
But,
I mean, I love it. I mean, it's like jiu-jitsu. We kind of resort to going. What is that?
Is that somebody's phone?
Is that your phone?
Not mine. I don't have a ringtone. I'm too old for a ringtone like that.
Is that speaker up there?
I think it's the speaker. Why is your speaker freaking out on us?
No idea.
And the podcast room is now possessed.
Oh, the neighbors.
It's that time of year.
It is.
What were we saying before we got distracted?
I think we were saying we want.
Oh, boxing.
Yeah,
Oh.
love to fit some
So
boxing
actually,
in.
what do you guys like? What's your guys' background?
So I wrestled for a semester.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah, I
one
knew
single
that, yeah.
semester. But growing up in Vegas, I did a lot of skateboarding and like the sports like that, like extreme sports or whatnot. And people always talk about like my base and stuff like that. And I feel like that's honestly what's contributed most to me is because landing a trick and then having to be able to catch yourself without falling is probably where I get like a lot of my self-awareness from. But I've never done any martial arts or anything. Jiu-jitsu is my very first one. So, and then I have that, that little bit of grappling experience. But my wrestling coach in high school when I did do it was like amazing. This guy was phenomenal. Like he was like, he had like world championships in wrestling and Greco-Roman wrestling. And like, he was like this short little stocky dude. Right. And I remember in the middle of class, he would like use students or, the teammates to practice or show the moves on. And one day, one of the guys gave a little bit too much resistance on him. And our coach was like, all right, and so now I'm going to show you this. And then he turns it on this dude, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets him up and like throws him to the side. He's like, and that's for being too rough with me. Next time, don't do that. And I was like, all right, well. But that was like one semester. And then when I went to my second high school, my freshman year, because I moved back with my dad because my parents were divorced. I went over to I think we just talked about this with Nate too. I was like, I went over to the wrestling coach at my second high school. And I was like, hey, coach, I was wondering if you need if you have any spots on your team. And he's like, he looked at me, he's like, what weight class are you? I was like, I'm 119. He's like, well, I don't need any 119s. I need 142s. And I was like, well, I can't get that big. So I'm going to go ahead and just stop wrestling now.
No.
So, but, so Richard Steele, he's a world famous boxing referee. I volunteered in middle school at his boxing gym in Vegas. And so I was trying to get into boxing while I was there, but it never came to fruition.
Did you actually spar or do anything like that?
No, none of that. I've done a little bit with Cody, a little Muay Thai with Cody, but I want to get into more of the defensive, like striking stuff like that. Just because, like, we started jiu-jitsu for self-defense, and pure jiu-jitsu isn't going to save you in the streets because getting punched in the face changes everything real quick, right? Yeah, so... and then there's like people that we follow, like his name, Chewy Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah,
right?
I follow him too.
Yeah, so he talks about like if you started Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense, there's absolutely zero reason for you not to do boxing, Muay Thai. Like don't stick with pure Jiu-Jitsu. But I mean, I'm starting to enjoy the sport of Jiu-Jitsu more now too. So it's kind of like, do I really want to?
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the thing, right? Is that like you talk about your background and it not necessarily being directly grappling, but you still take a lot of like, because I mean, I watch you, and when we first started rolling, I'm like, you have some type of background there already, right? But it doesn't have to be purely that base, right? The movement is movement,
right?
Whether it be on the ground or whether it be on a bicycle or a skateboard or whatever it is,
right?
And so that's where you take you take the good out of whatever you're experiencing, and then you kind of put it all together in the things that you like to do,
right? And that's like we had Dante, that's our coworker's son that came in, and instantly started watching him move, and I like walked over to her and I was like, does he have any background in anything? And she's like, no, why? I was like, that kid had like being a CrossFit and like weightlifting coach for so long, like you can tell body awareness. Like that's something you can't teach. It's something someone has to learn or they have the natural gift of it. And I was like, man, this kid, like if he sticks with this, like he's gonna be good. You know what I mean? And it's cool to see the younger generation as they start finding watching Charles grow into the practitioner, I guess you could say now that he is now, is like, I just hope he sticks with it and enjoys it as much as I enjoy watching him do it. You know what I mean? So what's your background, John?
So a long time ago, me and my sister were in Taekwondo for a couple of years, and that was interesting. I don't remember why I got out of it. I think I got in trouble. I was a bad kid, but anyway, I got out of that.
That's another podcast.
Yeah. And then I went to Guthrie Job Corps. I don't know if you ever heard of Job Corps, but they flew me out of state to a place in Oklahoma where bad kids go pretty much. And I got into kickboxing there. So I did that for a while, and then we had a substitute teacher come in for our security class. And I guess I wish I could remember his name, but I guess he was a big state wrestling coach in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And we were in the gym, and he was talking a lot of stuff, and he was like, if anybody wants to come on the mat and try it out, feel free to come out on the mat. So I raised my hand. So I was the first one to try him out on the mat, and I'd say and I'd been doing the kickboxing for probably 8 or 9 months at that point. So as soon as the match started, I threw a kick, and I mean, the second I lost that leg off the ground, he pretty much took me to the ground, and I was spread out, and I couldn't move anything, and he was smothering me. And I was like, what is going on? And that was the end of kickboxing. That was the first time I had experienced any. I didn't know he was jiu-jitsu at the time as well. The first time I'd experienced that. From there, I went straight into the Navy. So the day I got finished with there, they recruited me right out of there, straight into the Navy. We had a Golden Gloves boxer in our division. Mm-hmm. And in the voids, we would box, and he would teach us all how to box. Unfortunately,
in the voids.
Unfortunately, since he was the only one that really knew what he was doing, anything he taught us didn't matter. But I really enjoyed it, and I think we were on the boat together for 4 years, so that went on the whole time. And I really enjoyed boxing.
I really enjoyed boxing too. I just didn't like getting hit in the face.
Yeah, I don't like getting hit in the face at all.
Yeah,
I get like instant see red when I get hit in the face.
And actually like the worst punch I got was actually a body shot. It was one of those where it was like perfectly in the ribs, and I had my hands up, and after about 10 seconds of trying to like fake like it was not painful, I couldn't lift my hands anymore.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. So I was like, that's it, I'm done.
Did you ever compete in boxing? Or any other sport besides jiu-jitsu?
So I went to the Naval Academy, and we, like the first year that I did it, we had like the brigade. You would have brigade smokers, like they would call them. So once a year we'd get together, and I did that. But we had a traveling team. I wasn't on the traveling team, but I was definitely a frequent sparring partner to the guys that were in the traveling team. But I did a little bit of that competition. Nothing else except for I did a few tournaments, jiu-jitsu tournaments in Okinawa while I was there.
All under Ivan, right?
Yeah, all under Ivan, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't. Whenever you Google Ivan's name, one, I didn't know Ivan had an MMA background. He did a little bit of MMA.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
I found that out. And then two, I didn't realize how big Ivan actually is. Because when we were in Yokosuka, I mentioned Ivan as like our school's under Ivan, and one of the black belts out there, he's like, Ivan Sakamoto? I was like, yeah. He's like, I know that guy. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, our school is underneath him, and and whatnot. So
what was the feedback on that?
No, he just knew who he was. Like we didn't really like the guy that we were talking to, so it was just kind of like small talk in the moment. But yeah, so that was cool being in Japan and then having people know who we're under, because we've only been like doing jiu-jitsu since the school opened, which is like coming up on 2 years now. So I don't have very much experience outside of our school, right? So to go to Japan halfway across the world and people are like, oh yeah, I know they are. It was kind of a cool thing, It's like when you meet someone that hears the podcast and we have no idea who they are.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like you listen to our podcast. Like, I've never met you before in my life. Right. Do you know John? No, I have no idea who he is. Oh my god, this is even better.
Selfish. He's not important. That guy.
So what? So how long did you do in the Navy then? You said
so I enlisted in '93 right out of high school, and then I did a couple of years as enlisted, and then I went to the Naval Academy, right for four, and then I retired after like 20 years of service, right? But the 4 years at the academy didn't count. So technically, I've been in the Navy. I was in the Navy for 24 years.
Wow.
So you're not considered a Mustang then, right? Because you went to the OCS.
I don't think so. Well, I think so. A Mustang is technically somebody that did enlisted time, and then they transitioned to
That's what my buddy did.
to the
First class
commissioned
on the
officer.
subs.
Yeah. And so, like, it's hard for me to consider myself. I think that by definition I am, but it's hard for me to consider myself one because my enlisted time was very short, and it was very like I was in A school and C school at the time.
Oh, so you're a nuke.
No.
Oh.
So it was back before. So Sonar Techs used to have that option too, where you can go right to A school and C school if you signed on for a 6-year enlistment. And that's kind of what I did. And the benefit for me was that the A school and C school were in San Diego, which I was from San Diego. Yeah, so it was kind of like I graduated from high school, I got a steady paying job, and I'm still in, my neighborhood. And for a while I lived in the barracks, but I eventually moved back with my parents, and I just gave them, rent money. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So it was a good a transition for me. I think that for anybody that wants thinking about the military, I think that it's a good opportunity.
Pushing it on my kids.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like Charles always talks about, like he wants to be an army man. Like he watches like movies and video games and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I just want to let you know, the military ain't no joke. Like when you actually get in it, and like it's constantly changing. Don't get me wrong, but it's like once you have someone actually yelling at you that does not care about your opinion or want to hear your opinion, it's completely different.
Yeah, but and at the same time, they really don't care about your opinion, but they do care about you.
Yeah.
They have to take care of you in order to make sure that they have someone to relieve them when you're ready. But and that's the thing about, for me, the military is that it gives you enough structure that it gives you like. For somebody like me, it gives you like the structure that you need to continue to improve yourself.
Trust me, I really needed that structure.
Yeah. I was in a bad part of my life too when I finally joined. Also, I was like 19 years old, got evicted from my apartment, and like living with my dad on it, in his spare bedroom, and I was like, screw this, man. I need to join the Navy. So, because my dad was Air Force too.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it gives you enough freedom, like as far as financially, right? Without like being able to go buck wild, like, oh, now I got this money and I'm gonna go spend it and go crazy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because the letter of indebtedness is no joke when your command gets it and they're like, so you spent $10,000 this weekend? Like, what? No.
Like, can we hear that one?
No, I didn't do that. No, I didn't.
That's not you. No, I heard about this guy.
No, that was me. I know. I spent like when I first joined the Navy. The reason I'm so tattooed is because all my money went to tattoos.
Nice.
When I first joined the Navy,
It's money well spent. Right
it's lifetime, right?
That's right.
Like I'll always have it, right? Like it was like
That's right.
I always laugh at him like, I want mine removed.
Yeah, right. I'm a little too much to get mine removed, but like from the time I was 19 years old to the time I left San Diego, which is only a year and a half, is pretty much how much I got done on me right now. Is in that short amount of time. It was literally like once a month I was going to get tattooed.
Wow.
I was broke as a joke with that. My Saab that I have outside, that is, I bought that car at 19 years old.
Oh, nice.
And then it was like either I make my car payment or I get a tattoo. Some months it was a tattoo, some months it was the car payment. But I love San Diego. That was my first station. I absolutely loved it out there. When were you out there?
Oh, we moved out there. I want to say like in the early 80s. And then I left in 95 after I graduated college, and then a couple of years in the Navy. But we haven't lived there since. But we go almost every year. We were there. We would go almost every year because both of mine and Jamie's families are there.
We're about to be there
we're
year
gonna
for
go
about
there.
4 or 5 months.
Yep.
Oh yeah. You guys are doing another.
Gonna go.
Another
temporary
TDY.
duty?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where are you going to be at? The shipyard there?
Yeah, for the
Coronado.
shipyard. Yeah.
Coronado.
We'll probably stay on Coronado.
Oh, better. Yeah. Because there's another shipyard on the San Diego side.
Oh no, we'll be Coronado.
No. My boat got
We don't even
refitted
leave the
there.
island. Like I make sure my house is on the island. I'm not leaving it.
Did you guys get an apartment, or where are they going to put you?
Oh, we pick our own. Like you just stay whatever the daily allowance is.
Yep. Yeah.
There's lots of contracts you can stay.
So if you can get a
Houses,
mansion for how much
whatever.
they'll pay,
Yeah.
you can get a mansion.
Yeah.
Really. It's crazy.
Are you gonna bring a car out there? or
I'm
what?
driving my truck.
Okay.
I'll
good.
probably fly in.
They
just
do a
rent.
rental car, but I did that last time, and they
Yeah.
put me in like a little Ford Festiva. I thought I was
For
gonna,
that long?
I thought I was gonna die on the freeway. I was like, I'm
Oh,
never
yeah.
doing this again. I'll drive my own truck down here.
Yeah, I was in
that's not
San
too bad
Diego in
drive.
2009 to about mid 2011 because I had my C school out in San Diego also. And when people talk about San Diego traffic, always lived south of 32nd Street, so I never really hit too much traffic. Like there's a little bit of standstill, but
Same for me.
it
So
was
you're in
it was
National City then.
yeah. I was like no, I wasn't in National City. I was like Chula Vista
Okay,
and stuff
yeah,
like that, and then Imperial Beach and whatnot. And so when people were like, "Man, San Diego traffic is so terrible," I'm like, well, 10 years ago, it wasn't that bad, but I also lived south, so I kind of avoided all
Yeah.
of it.
Well, so when I lived there, this was in the early 80s and 90s, like I said, and I lived in like the South Bay area, which I lived in Spring Valley, but I went to school in Paradise Hills and all that area, and kind of like looking back now, like we would watch whenever the news was going on, and you'd watch the traffic and everything.
Yeah.
And it was like I almost felt like second class citizens because they would never talk about the traffic that was south of like I-8. Right?
Yeah.
So I-8 basically splits
Yep.
the city in half, north to south, and it like north of it is like was my high school was like University City, La Jolla, and like Del Mar and all that, and they would talk about all this traffic all up in that area, and then south of that, which was like
National City,
yeah,
Chula Vista,
National City
yeah.
too. This was like, man, nobody wants to talk about that place.
That's where I stayed.
Yeah,
I loved it. I loved Imperial Beach.
I told you, first car I ever bought, I didn't know anything about interest rate,
Yeah.
any of that, and I went to National City, bought
Oh
cars.
my gosh, yeah.
And I didn't know anything.
Bad
Never bought a
idea.
car before, none of that stuff. And I bought this. I went for like a Jeep Wrangler, and I left in this lowered Mitsubishi Mirage. They cut the springs on. They saw me a mile away.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I remember my chief at the time was like, "Hey, where'd you get that car?" So I told him, and he's like, "What's your interest rate?" And I was like, "What is that?" And he's like, "Let me see your paperwork." So I gave him my paperwork, and my interest rate was 19.9%.
Oh
Holy
my
crap.
gosh.
Never forgot it. He was like, "Do you know what that is?" And I was like, "Nope." So he explained it all to me there, and I was like, "Man, I got robbed."
Were you able to get out of the
No,
contract? Oh man, you just gotta live with it.
Yeah,
At that
well, I
point.
was like, lesson learned. Never heard of interest rate before.
Yeah, well, they prey on those young sailors.
They do,
over there,
they do.
that was in '97. So
I'm sure it's still the same.
Yeah, well, my first car, that Saab, I got through the loan through Navy Federal. I just got it pre-approved for 19 years old, 10 grand. I thought it was the biggest check I've
Yeah.
ever seen in my life, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to the car dealership, and it wasn't. It was like in the Auto Center way, like area, or not Auto Center, where all the car dealerships are in San Diego, and I think it's Auto Center in San Diego
Yes,
too,
yeah,
isn't
I
it?
think
Yeah,
so.
it's actually Auto Center there. Yeah. So it was
No,
like some,
the mile of cars.
yeah,
Mile of Cars.
National
National
City,
City
Mile,
Mile
yes.
of Cars.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I was shopping there, and I saw the Saab, and I was like, "Ooh, I could get this Saab, or I could get this Malibu." I'm so happy I got the Saab. First of all, I don't know what I was thinking about the Malibu, but my interest rate when I was 19 years old was 13.5%, and I couldn't imagine paying a loan now. But 19 years old, I don't have any credit or
Oh,
anything
yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah.
So you got to live
got-
with. But then my car insurance was literally as much as my car payment. It was $220 a month for my full coverage car at 19 years old, and I was like, "Okay, that's fine. Like, I'll just whatever."
That's another tattoo right
There's
there.
another tattoo. I didn't want to talk about it, but I loved it down there. And when I found out that we had a trip coming up to San Diego, like my tattoo artist is down there. He's also a jiu-jitsu guy, and I was like, "Oh." The first chance I get to go back down to San Diego, first of all, I'm going to train at Autos just maybe one time.
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah.
drop in there and just whatever.
That's too big for me. You know where I'm going.
Yeah. What is the name of the place again?
That Victory Fitness.
Victory
that
Fitness,
Jocko
Jocko.
one. Yeah, it's
That's
in,
big
It's in
too.
National City. Well, it's only
Yeah.
$99 a month.
Oh,
That's
nice.
way more affordable for me.
Yeah.
And then Ty, my tattoo artist, he goes to Stronghold. And,
Oh, yeah.
And so he said, yeah, if you come down here, we can go train. So I've known Todd since I was 19 years old, right?
Okay.
And we were messing around in his tattoo shop one day, and he just started like basically grappling me. And ever since then, I've always wanted to, like, now that I have
Get even.
experience, like let's go, Todd. But Todd's 6 foot, 220 pounds of pure muscle, like
Cody.
Muay Thai fighter, like just exactly. Like if I could, like Cody, but more muscle.
Yeah.
Like so, And I was texting him the other day, and I was like, "So how's your jiu-jitsu?" So he was a purple belt, and because he was out of it for so long, he just gave up his purple belt and just started.
That's what I said. Isn't that
Yeah,
crazy?
yeah.
And I was like, I don't know
He's
about
like,
that.
he's like, bro, I forgot so much. He's like, you know, he still remembers stuff, but
Yeah.
he gets. He's like, oh crap, that's right. There goes that, and there goes that. And he's like, so now he's like, what I do is I do old school like UFC fight and stuff. I just lay on top of people so I don't get.
So what did his professor say about that?
I don't know. I haven't asked him about that.
Oh,
Like,
man.
this because I asked him. The first thing I said was like, "Did you keep your purple belt on?" He's like, "No, I gave it back." He's like, he's like, I still have like a lot of the skills I have, but
Yeah.
one, it's a brand new school I've never been to. I haven't done it in like 10, 15 years. So he's like, I'm good. There's no reason for me to walk in there with my old purple belt on when it's been so long.
That would be
Yeah.
tough. 15
Yeah.
years removed, you'd
Yeah,
probably
I
forget
get
a
a
lot.
lot.
Yeah.
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 So I remember
and your
watching.
body's so much different.
Oh,
too, after
immensely.
That time.
Yeah.
So I guess I could see that, but I
Purple belt's up there though.
Yeah,
that's a long.
I
That's
know.
a big commitment to.
yeah, and
to
if he
give
was
up.
getting it back like 15 years ago, then that's like serious. Like
Yeah.
he's a serious purple belt. You know what I'm saying? You know, I mean, he'd probably like brown already.
Yeah, right, exactly. So he's back into it, and then he has his daughter into it too, which is I'm like,
Nice.
his daughter's I think she's like almost 9 years old now, 8 or 9 years old, and so he does it with her, and he's like, he talks about how awesome it is. Like
Yeah.
obviously, you know, right? You
Oh,
have
that's the
all your
best.
kids are into
Yeah,
it.
it's the best.
I'm like sideline coaching
Mhm.
Charles in the middle of like the test, and I'm trying not to like to do it too loud, but he was like doing like single legs, and then he was just pushing the kid with the single, and I was like, Charles, no, like get him off balance, like throw him to the side, and he's like, I don't know what you're saying. He's like looking at me, I don't know what you're saying. And then he had to pass the open guard, and he just kept running into the kid's legs, and I'm like, Charles, push the legs out the way, get around the legs, you know. And
Pantomime.
yeah. And so Lauderdale's like, she's like, I love watching you like sideline coach.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm trying not to, because he's getting tested. I don't want to give him the answer because I want to know that he knows what to do. But come on, man, like there's some things that you should know.
You're better than me. I don't even look at the girls because if I make eye contact, they might start crying. I'm looking somewhere else.
Well, you know what's the best is like you start doing that, but at some point they're gonna be rolling with you.
Yes,
And
I
then they're
cannot
gonna
wait
be
to
giving
beat
you
him up.
pressure, and then they're gonna be threatening you, and
Yep.
it's like, you know, that's like the best feeling. You know, it really is. It really is.
Right. Yeah, watching you and Austin
Yeah.
all together, I
Oh,
was,
yeah.
obviously I'd be like, I cannot wait for that because Charles is 11 years old.
Yeah.
And you know he's getting up in size, but you know I'm like waiting for that one day where we're rolling, and I'm like, oh,
And it happens
got me.
overnight. Like,
He
yeah,
got me.
yeah.
He got me.
exactly.
Wow, okay.
Exactly. It happens overnight. Like, it's like, you know, you're rolling, and it's like, oh, I could just sit on you. I could just do whatever, you know, but at some point they just get like this strength just pops, you know.
Poor Katie.
you're like, where did that come from?
Katie's already experienced it from Olivia.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were wrestling around yesterday at Rosalie's house, and we were there, and Olivia just owned her the whole time.
No way.
I was like, how are you going to let your little daughter take you down like
Why you
that?
do it? No, you should look at Olivia. Why are you gonna do that? You know she's untrained.
I was
Did
like,
the professor teach you better?
I was like, how you going to let your daughter get you like that? Like, oh, too much.
So you had the whole family into it, right?
Yeah. Jamie started this year, but the kids have been doing it since. Actually, I started a couple of years before, and then when we moved out of Hawaii and they got a little bit older. We moved to. We were in Alabama for a year, and that's where they started.
And that was right before here, right?
Yeah. So yeah. Right before we got. Well, no. I'm sorry. That was right before Okinawa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Did they get their blue belts in Okinawa? Or
in Okinawa. Yeah.
Under
they
Alvin?
were when we started in what's it called? Oh, Alabama. They were like, I think they left there actually in white belts, and then when we got to Okinawa, they left Okinawa they went through the kids ranks, and then Austin and Jada actually left Okinawa in blue belts.
That's
and then,
crazy.
Yeah,
because that's a
Katie was
long
yellow.
ways for kids under 16,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Because you got to go. What is it like? White, gray,
Yeah,
white,
yeah.
gray, black.
Well, but I mean, I think like at that point, it's you know, like the belting for the kids is a little bit different because you really have to look at their age too. Because if you're giving, if you're throwing in those kids with other kids that are a lot, the age discrepancy, you know, they're between the strength and between just their body control.
right.
It's just something to consider. But but yeah, definitely they were already deserving of it for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I love throwing with Austin.
yeah, it's fun.
Because
Right?
he's a smaller
One of my
guy.
favorites with that lapel
Yeah,
stuff.
dude.
he would
And
do.
like, and then trying to I was like, man, I don't understand what to do with this lapel stuff.
Yeah,
man. Like it's so crazy.
And like that's kind of like so. When they were in high school, like Austin started wrestling, and both Jada and Austin started wrestling on top of doing the jiu-jitsu stuff. And I realized, like, looking it back at how kind of I was trying to help them like learn their wrestling to what they're doing today. I was in the beginning, I was very like do it my way, right? Like I'm teaching you this specific single, and this is the movement for the single, and it's a very important movement to me because that's what I've learned, right? And after years of doing it, but they have taken after seeing them and like Austin, but you look at Austin, his game is very like drastically different than mine. Like I don't know where he got his game from. Well, he got it from Ivan, but the things that he does and the things that he chooses to study and learn on his own and practice on his own, like I don't have much say in any of that, right?
Right.
But and his game is so different that I learned that like for us to be even parents or teachers at some point you almost have to be more of a guide than a like this is how you will do things, you know what I'm saying? Because it's so much diversity out there and so many options, there's so many decision points and journeys that you can take or paths that you can take that to tell somebody that you should be a certain way is almost detrimental to both yourself or to that person in their development, but also to your between both of you in your relationship. So I learned so much just watching them grow.
Yeah. I try to show Charles a few things, but no, not to step on your toes or anything like that. So it's like at home I'm like, all right, let's practice this, or let's see. I want to see you do this.
No, yeah, I encourage that. I mean, I want you guys to do that kind of thing because, like, what I really appreciate is that the parents that do the jiu-jitsu as well as their kids, because not only can they relate to each other, but they can also help each other practice and do that kind of thing. So by all means, like, go do that kind of stuff. By all means, go find out like what you like to do or what you want to try to do, like research that stuff online and like come bring it back. Like I would say just for me, if you're going to do that kind of thing, just let me know. So that way I can help for safety reasons. Right. Because there's a lot of things that you see on YouTube and it looks really cool. But if you don't really understand the movement for yourself and your partner, you could either hurt both of you, one or the other, or both.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just as part of that journey, as you're investigating, or if you're, interested in going down a certain, sequence or path or whatever it ends up being, let me know so that I could help, like, kind of lend my experience to your.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you're not against the YouTube learner?
No. Well, what I'm against is like when people do it and then they say, "Ooh, I got this secret thing, and I'm gonna see if it works," and and then they end up hurting somebody else.
Yeah.
That one I just can't. I mean, I would get upset about. So do it. I mean, I'm not saying you have to tell everybody in the gym, right?
But at least you could point out something that may happen.
Yeah, at least tell me about it, so that way we can keep everybody safe.
Well, I know when I was YouTubing everything.
Or George, tell me or George about it.
Right.
I'm definitely not telling George, so I'm gonna try it on. But I think I came to the realization after there's a couple things we subscribe to that I think help out a lot, which is the Gracie University and Roy Dean TV.
Yeah.
Both of those I really like.
Yeah, I follow both of those too.
But I came to the point where I was like, I don't really need to learn anything new.
Yeah.
I just need to work on what I know.
Yeah,
until
there's too much out there.
Yeah, I was like, I don't
so
like. I don't want to learn anything
No.
like out there
So
that's
much.
new. I just want to focus on what I have now.
Yeah.
And that's the conclusion I'm at this point.
And like you kind of like chase DVDs and you chase like videos and all that kind of stuff, but when you look at it, like what really sticks is like there's probably like three things. Like I'm like what the way that I'm trying, like I don't know if you guys noticed that I've kind of changed the way that we've been like learning, right?
Yeah.
To do more of the actual like sparring part of it, like because that's when you
we
learn,
talk about that.
Yeah, like you learn by movement, you learn by repetition and that kind of thing, but you really learn when moves click, right? And not just in drilling or anything like that, but in actual like sparring or combat, whatever it ends up being. What I'm trying to do is like in every position or every in transitions, right, is to kind of stick with like 3 common elements of what that really means, or what is common between all the different takedowns out there, right? And we talked about like you're either pushing somebody over or you're pulling somebody over
Right.
their head, right? And so those kind of things I'm trying to emphasize, and whether or not it ends up being like a leg trip or ends up being like a throw or ends up being a a head and arm or whatever it is, right? Even an ankle pick, right? There's some common things in there with respect to gravity, with respect to your base, and with respect to your grips that causes people to go one way or the other.
Right.
And you're just like they're facilitating. You're just making the environment for that off balancing, that fall to happen. So that's kind of where, and it's not so much, I know this takedown, I know like 5 takedowns, I know 10 sweeps, I know,
Right.
it's I'm trying to get away from that and get more into, okay, you're in this situation, what
Cause and effect kind of things.
Yeah. What's common in here that you can, get yourself on top or get out of this position, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, we're in Japan. That was because when the school first started, right? It's just growing as a school. You try things. If it works, it doesn't work, or whatever. But when we were in Japan, we talked about it, and you've heard all the episodes, right? So, but how when we were out there, that Trey, he was a purple belt, American Top Team purple belt, and he kind of had what we do now is like a concept for the week that led into the next week as well. You know what I mean? So it'd be like, okay, so we're gonna do breaking the guard, and then breaking the guard is going to go into pressure passing, and then pressure passing is going to go into side control, right? And that's all into 1 week. Yeah. And then the next week it's going to be attacks from side control. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like flowed together, which to me that's how I learned the best, right? It's kind of like where did this come from? Oh, it came from the previous movement that we just did, right? And then knowing the why. Yeah, I think is a big thing too. Lauderdale is the same way. She's like, you could tell me how to do something, but if you don't tell me the why we do it, I'm not ever gonna remember.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean by when I say like, the 3 common things in this situation that you'll find whether or not you're doing, takedown X, A through Z.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is that why do takedowns A through Z work? And if you can understand the whys, then you'll get why, you'll get takedown B, C, D, and F. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's that's kind of where we're trying to go, where I'm trying to go, and it's a little bit challenging because when you get like as we grow, we're getting a wider range of experience. So and that works very well to we've kind of shifted to do more positional sparring. Shorten the warm-ups a little bit down, shorten the movement part of it a little bit down, but do a lot more of the rolling type.
Yeah, that's been fantastic.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now.
I'm a super
30-minute
slow
warm
learner.
up. So 30-minute warm up. I was like,
yeah,
I should just go do the CrossFit workout and skip this first 30 minutes.
and it's great for like our stage, right?
Yeah.
But when the new people come in and they just get smashed, I feel almost bad for them. It's like I know I'm throwing you into the wolves. Just bear with it.
Right.
We're trying to find the right formula of kind of discussion and thought provoking, and then actually doing, right?
Yeah, because like you mentioned, like you I remember one class you're like we're not going to give you all the answers right now. I was like, you're like, because you need to go fishing to find out why on some of these things. Like you're not going to learn if I give you everything. Yeah. Like you gotta experience.
I don't know
it.
Everything.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But like I like you got to go do it. Like, and you're gonna learn better if you just go do it instead of me sitting here and explaining why. Which is I think you were trying to get at. Like I'm not gonna sit here for the whole class and explain these things. Like because you'll just have to learn it. Like
and you got to do it.
You got to just do it.
You just got to do it.
So what have been some of the biggest growing pains since you've taken over? Is it like the parents, belt promotions, or like
I think
lesson plans?
For me, I mean, and everybody's going to be different, right? But I think like as far as growing pains, I think that this experience has been nothing but growth for me personally, and I hope it's like for everybody else that comes in through our door. But I think for me, because I've never wanted to be promoted. I don't care about promotion. I don't care about belts. Personally, I would be happy if I was a white belt But you know, belting is important because it helps. It's a communication tool. It tells everyone around you how much experience you have.
Yeah.
You know, your professor's opinion of you, and the value that you can provide to the people around you, but also like the risks that they can take with you too, right? Because you're not going to go in and throw heel hooks on a white belt, just because it's not safe for either of you. But so that said, I guess my point was that to me, belting's not important, but it is. And I in this last year, I think I did not pay attention enough to it, with and the other part of belting, I think, is that that the recognition of effort. It is important, especially for kids. I think that they they want that to have that affirmation. And I think I have been remiss in making sure that it happens consistently. So that's kind of where I'm like in the recent months, I'm kind of like taking a turn to.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges with that is that, like, what do the belts even mean? I think Roy Dean he does a great job with saying, okay, these are the requirements, right? But like, you have to watch the video to actually get what those requirements are.
Yeah,
And then these are like 2-hour videos for each belt, right?
Yes.
And there's nothing like that, I don't think, for the kids. So I mean, yeah, and there's so many belts for kids. So I'm kind of like making it up as we're going along.
Yeah.
Based off of like what I consider myself. I've been doing it for almost 10 years, but I hesitate to call myself even like professor or expert or any of this, right? Because we're still growing, or we're always learning. But with something like belts, I mean, it's just like in addition to teaching what each of those things, you have to kind of define it, and that's where I kind of run into a challenge too.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge I had as a student was just transitioning my mind process, and we talked about it before, was when you came into the school, it was a little different because we had started with this, I don't know, what was it, self-defense
More
mindset.
of a self-defense, right?
That's pretty much all it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never heard of points before or holding a position for any length of time. And I was like, what is going on around here? Like, now I got to tell you, so for a while I was hung up on that. Like, what does he mean, hold this for 3 seconds? I'm never going to do this in the street. That's how my mind would go, right?
Yeah.
But then after hearing, it's not really about that. It's just securing that position. And then once that registered, and then go and watch that competition last time, that made a lot of sense, and that helped smooth it out as far as.
Yeah, and I think
me.
I didn't explain that well enough, because by all means, like I don't mean, and I've been listening to the podcast. I caught up yesterday, and one of the recurring themes is like, do you go after the submission or do you have to?
Yeah.
But
it's
really,
an internal struggle,
right? Well, but really, it's not even a question, right? Yeah. The answer is simple. You always go for the submission.
Yeah.
You are always going for the submission, right? But for me, before you even get that submission, you have to have control. Yeah. Because if you don't, I mean, yes, there are some guys that can do it without any grips. Like, they're like monkeys, right? They could be 10 feet away from you, like Bruno Malfacine, right? I think that's how you say his name. I don't know, but he could be 20 feet away from you, and like the next second you'll be stuck in an armbar because he's just that fluid, right? But not all of us are that. Most, like, he is like 1% of the population, right? For the average Joe, like, getting that position, if like the point structure is there to help you structure your process, your progress, or even have a process in this like chaotic sport, right?
Right.
And so what I meant by all of that, why I even spoke about points, is because not for winning on points. That's not what the point structure is there, because it favors your, the more controlling position.
Right.
And that was just a way to emphasize that, yeah, this position is, for control purposes and for sport purposes, better than another position, right?
Right.
You know, because it's a fact, right? I
Right.
mean,
that's why mount gives you more points
Yeah.
than,
that's
than
why
knee
mount-
on
that's why-
belly.
yeah,
For a while, I was
exactly,
like, in my head, I was
exactly.
thinking, I don't care if they stay there for 4 minutes and rack up points. Because
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wear
Yeah.
them down, and then I'm waiting for that last minute to make my move.
But the 3 seconds is important too, right?
Yes.
Because in 3 seconds, like somebody can fish out, like you can take the average person and you get them in a position for 3 seconds. If you can,
That's a lot of energy.
it is. And that's why like in 3 seconds, like most people would end up like quitting, right? Or quitting trying to get out, right? I mean, not necessarily quit the match, but in that one pinning maneuver, they're gonna stop flip flopping, right? Like we call it in wrestling, they call it like a fish, like you're flopping like a fish, right? But you know, if and that is a very effective move. Like flopping like a fish is really effective in getting out of a hold, right? But you can't sustain that,
Right.
you know. So that's why like that 3 seconds is a thing.
Yeah,
right?
I got it after a
Yeah.
while. I was like, I got it.
We just
Yeah.
mentioned that
Secure
the other
it,
day,
secure it.
and we were talking
Yeah.
about the because we've had conversations about
Yeah.
in the middle of rolls of like slow down, just get that position first instead of going for the arm par and then you falling back and it wasn't secure as much as it should be. And I think that's where John and I talked about it too. Is like I don't think before you even said this, like I don't think Professor's talking about 3 seconds for the points. I think he's talking about like it was the self-realization of people freak out for like 3 seconds feels like an eternity when you're in a position that you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know
Sure
what I mean?
does.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're going to, that 3 seconds,
Yeah.
like knowing that you can hold someone there for 3 seconds and let them calm down and then you can enforce your will on them. It's
Yeah.
like, it's more
That's
along
exactly
the lines
what
of
it
what
is.
we're doing. Right?
And like even when we were sparring, for a while, for like a week or so, I was like, okay, 3 seconds is the thing, but I want them to hold them for 5 seconds. And I really like try to enforce that 5 seconds, but it was like 5 seconds is too long. Because
Forever.
yeah, because after 3 seconds, all that energy is gone,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And so now you just are laying there for 2 seconds, and it's like, well, we could do something else, right? So let's just stick with 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I know that the points there is can be talking about points can be construed as like focusing on sport.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, that's not my intention.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, I am really I mean, I actually really am always have self-defense in my mind.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that includes like holding a person down. That includes like going into the position. Like that's why I emphasize the points, is because it makes sense. If you have knee on belly, you want to go to the mount, right? If you can take the back, go take the back.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, John Danaher recently posted something, and it was, I think we actually posted on the Facebook page too, where he's talking about how like sport jiu-jitsu is going away from fighting for submission, and now it's more towards racking
win
up
on
as many
points.
points as
Yeah.
possible, and how the art of jiu-jitsu, the art of wrestling is the pin, the art of judo is the throw, the art of jiu-jitsu is the submission, right? And he feels like people are kind of just steering away from the submission, and they just want to get as many points as possible and be as safe as possible and not have to worry about, And so when we were looking at like the upcoming Revolution competition, we're like, how many submissions?
We were stalking people. We were
Yeah.
looking at, because it shows like, well, how many matches they won and how they won it.
Yeah.
If it was points or submission, and it was very interesting.
Yeah. And a lot of people win by points. Not
Yeah.
very many people win by submission. I was surprised.
Well, I think that's more of a nature of the level that we're at, right? I mean, I think like when you're like talking about, because I heard you guys talk about this on the podcast about how Danaher's the Danaher Death Squad had so many submissions out of it.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
At the top level, ADCC. Like,
Yeah.
That's crazy that how many submissions.
Yeah, but I don't know if I don't it's hard to attribute to one thing, but I think that bottom line is that we're always going for submission, like period. The points there are just there to give some structure and time. Like you have to give something at the end of you have to give a time limit, otherwise these matches would go on forever.
And stalemate and just
Yeah, exactly. So it just gives you a structure in the sport side of it. And it's not to say that not to go for the submission, but it's just that like, okay, you have a time frame. In that time frame, if you're both at the same level, then likelihood there's not going to be a submission there. So at the end of it, how do you at least judge, who?
And I think that's like also what we realized too is like, because if you do stalemate and it happens in class too, right? It's like, well, who is more dominant? kind of
Yeah,
thing, right?
I mean,
like
yeah,
it's
it
like
helps provide that structure.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
You still showed like you were working towards something, or you held a better position, right? And like you did this or that. So if it was purely submission only, if you did like Metamorphosis, right? The Gracie Metamorphosis is like a 20-minute match, and it's and it's like submission only. But at the end of the day, judges, if they go 20 minutes without a submission, then they still have to go to judges, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, well, who put in more work? Who was more dominant during the time frame and whatnot?
Subjective at that. So yeah, it's a way to like take some subjectivity out of it, and make it a little bit more. Yeah. So I mean, it's always go for the submission. Let that not be a question.
So yeah, there's like I couldn't believe how many kids belts there are, and like you said, like you're kind of just building it as you go.
Yeah.
And we dropped in at Hybrid, which is a gym over in Bremerton, right, where George came from.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see because they've been open for 20. You know, he's been doing it since like the mid '80s. Been in black belts in like the mid '80s. But it's cool to go drop into a school that has so much history.
Oh yeah.
But I love building the history with our school. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, those guys are great. I mean, I rolled at Hybrid. I when I first got here, I was looking for a school, and it just like the timing of Cody's opening and all that kind of stuff was just like it couldn't have been better for me. But I did roll at Hybrid, and those guys are awesome. Like, and they have a lot of experience, a great school. They know what they're doing, they know what they're teaching. But you're right. Yeah, they've been around. They have that structure, and for us, like we're figuring things out.
Yeah, right. And that's what I like. I don't mind at all like the growing pains, because it's just like when I first came to Washington, Cody had being a coach and CrossFit side, right? Like looking back at our coaching when we first started like 5 years ago up here, like it's going to take effort. It's going to take time to iron out the wrinkles. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to be absolutely perfect from the get-go. And so it's cool to see the slow progression that we've been having, the upwards progression as a school, as like athletes and whatnot, because Cody talked about it all the time, where he's like, you guys are, when the school first opened, he's like, you guys are brand new, and in 6 months you're going to roll with someone that's brand new, and you're going to realize how much
progress you've made.
Exactly. Yeah. 6 months is no time really, but in the world of jiu-jitsu, 6 months is a huge difference.
Oh yeah.
It's night and day.
And I want it to be, I want you guys to have that that recognition that I've been doing this for 3 months. I mean, I'm a different person 6 months ago than I am today. Yeah. And I've grown since then. So.
Yeah. And I think that it's not only like physical attributes, but like mental also.
Yeah.
Like we talk about how Cody back in the day would get a knee on belly on us, and it was like tapping from pressure. Oh, yeah. It was like the most crushing. Yeah, it was like the most excruciating thing I've ever done in my life. And so now someone goes knee on belly, and I'm like, thank God you're not trying to attack me.
I've been through worse.
Yeah, I've been through worse. You know what I mean? And it's cool to have that mental fortitude to understand, like, well, this sucks.
Yeah.
But it's not that bad. But it's not that bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I was rolling with Chris and the other day, and Chris is newer. He's like a 2-stripe, I believe now. Yeah. And I had him in not necessarily a bread cutter, but I had some pressure across his neck. And afterwards, he's like, I'm not gonna lie to you. He's like, that bread cutter you almost had 2-3 months ago, I would have tapped to it instantly. He's like, but now I understand that as long as I can breathe, I'm okay. I'm not dying.
That's why jiu-jitsu is for everybody, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why I want like we started that women's class, and that's where I want them to understand is that, it might feel uncomfortable the first time you do it, but you go there every day or every week, a couple times a week, what was comfortable back then is not going to be what was uncomfortable back then is not going to be a thing. And so we have to put ourselves in those positions in a controlled environment so that, things don't become as big of a deal as we make them.
Right. We talk about women obviously doing jiu-jitsu all the time, because I think jiu-jitsu, like Helio Gracie said, jiu-jitsu is for the small guy to know that he can control the big guy. Yeah. Right. And the same thing with women. Women are usually, not all the time, right? We're not saying, not mansplaining stuff, but women are usually smaller, and the assailants are usually bigger, right? And
I would even say, like, if you even have a female and a male at the same weight, Right, just because like body composition,
Right.
like the
anatomy of a man.
the anatomy of a man versus a woman. The men are gonna have the upper body strength and that muscular advantage, right? Upper body wise,
Right.
But and like, we focus like so much like just in our society, really everywhere. Like we focus on the upper body, arms, movement, whatever, and we don't really like focus on the
Legs.
like the dexterity of the legs. And so it gives us like jiu-jitsu gives us an opportunity to exercise the dexterity and develop the dexterity of our legs.
Yeah. So when it comes to jiu-jitsu, like Chewy talks about like if he could like prescribe one workout for like a jiu-jitsu practitioner, it'd be a deadlift. He's like, because he says it's just the most relative to jiu-jitsu. But I kind of disagree, because we use a lot of hips and legs in jiu-jitsu, whether it's a bridge, whether it's an arm bar, right? We're using a lot of our extension into our hips. And so what are your thoughts on that? What do you, if you wanted someone to train for the sport of jiu-jitsu, right? How would you tell them to, what would be your like number one thing that they should probably do?
I would say figure out what's best for you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everyone's
think
different.
Everybody's different, right? I mean, I think that depends on where you're at with your life, what you're at with your goals, but I think but I think like as far as like an exercise, like I would agree with that. I think I actually would agree with the deadlift, just because it's, it's like jiu-jitsu is like a compound sport, right? I mean, you're using every part of your body at different times, or at the same time even. And so I think I kind of agree with the deadlift kind of tie.
Maybe I should just revisit my ideas of
No. But actually,
I'm
so
like
what
yoga.
would you
I'm
say?
like
What would you
yoga.
say would be like
I say
lifting
squat.
wise? What
I say squat.
a squat?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's probably the most powerful compound movement you can do. I mean, you
But
can
how
pull.
about your grips though? Like, squat
Then that's the
doesn't
thing,
work
right?
your
It's you're kind of playing into it,
Yeah.
right? It's like there's a give and take for everything.
Yeah.
Like the deadlift helps immensely with your posterior chain, right? But and your core and everything like that too. But to me, as a weightlifting CrossFit coach who's been competing in the sport a little bit, seeing the benefits of someone able to squat in a good neutral position and then being able to move a large amount of weight, to me has always been more beneficial than someone being able to deadlift more.
Yeah.
I just see more life transition in from a squat than it is to a deadlift, right? And whenever we do class, my coach's brain comes out on how can I translate this into something I'm familiar with, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of what we do. To me, I use my hips a lot, and you get to, once again, like you guys can hit me up on Instagram or whatever and disagree with me, but to me, the power of my hips come from my squat, not from my deadlift. I'm a terrible deadlifter.
Okay.
I am so bad at deadlifting, but I am fantastic at squatting, right? So my anatomy, once again, is like, for me, I always think squat, right? Because you can build cardiovascular from it, you can build muscle endurance, you can build strength all from a squat, and you could do the same thing with a deadlift. But me personally, I just see more translation over.
Maybe I'm getting confused because I was actually thinking of not necessarily a squat or a deadlift, but actually like a squat with the how
with like the
hexagon.
axle bar.
Yeah. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I agree with you then.
I think about it long and hard because I love strength training, and like jiu-jitsu's taking over to the point where CrossFit was for me when I first started CrossFit.
Oh,
and, like,
that's good
weightlifting.
news.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I kind of like
news for
stopped
me.
doing it. So, but it's like so I look at everything in a sense of how can I better my body for jiu-jitsu, right? And so one thing that I feel like a lot of people talk about is what movements mimic jiu-jitsu movements, right? But in a sense, if you mimic your workout towards the same exact things you're going to do in jiu-jitsu, you are going to be losing a lot of dexterity and strength and things that that complement it also. You know what I mean? Like just because it's not the same thing that you're doing exactly in jiu-jitsu doesn't mean a bicep curl is not going to be just as beneficial as, say, a rope pull or something like that, right? Working on that grip, in my opinion. So
I find the row machine is the most beneficial to me.
row machine.
Yeah, because I feel like my hands get tired gripping that rope.
Oh yeah, that's a
And
good
the
point.
way we're pulling, we pull on the gi and we pull on the collar.
I never even thought about that.
And you're still using your legs, but because a lot of times I'm on my back and I'm pulling,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm pushing off with my
Yeah.
legs, trying to get a foot in their bicep and stuff. That's the one I feel like for me would be the biggest gain.
Yeah, if you could increase resistance to where you,
Yeah.
but then you could turn that also into like a sled drag or something like that with like a rope. When I was in Japan, I was doing a bunch of strength training, and I did a lot of open palm farmer carries and overhead carries and stuff like that because I really wanted to work on that grip strength. And then after you showed us the first time the monkey wrench twisting of the, I still remember the day that happened because everyone was like, I never even thought of that. Like a whole new world happened.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like I feel like grip strength is a huge thing also, which another reason why deadlifts are so great also, because being able to hold on to someone when they're trying their darnest to get you off them is it's kind of discouraging to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Like I can't get them off.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, but how long do you see yourself doing jiu-jitsu until you're in a walker?
That's right. Forever. And that's kind of like where I stress the safety part of our classes too, is because I want everyone to be able to do it like into their 60s, 70s, whatever. Right. But in order to do that, we all have to take care of ourselves, and we have to take care of our partners. We have that responsibility. So, I would like to do this, for as long as we can.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I used to do the CrossFit and the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I tried to do both for quite some time. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's it. I have to let one go to keep doing the other.
Yeah. Do you think you can do CrossFit for as long as you can do jiu-jitsu? Like, I mean, if you
yeah, I think
even
so.
if you gave up one for the other, would you be able to do? Is there longevity in CrossFit?
I mean, I think so.
Yeah.
I think if anything,
ex-Billy is an example of that, right?
yeah, absolutely. But I think doing them both consecutively, one and then right into the other, unless the CrossFit workout is geared like so you don't, I don't know, blow out the same muscles that you're about to use in the next class.
You use all muscles in.
Yeah, because I mean, if I end up doing 300 squat type movements in CrossFit and then jump over and then we're doing a bunch of squats or anything, and it's like, well, we're
doing stand up now.
Yeah, they're already shot before I even get there.
Yeah.
Especially like wall balls and things of that nature, and then I got to go in and use grips. So I was like, this is just not working.
Yeah, that's tough. That's why, and it's kind of like, how do you divvy up your time throughout the day to make sure you get all of that right?
Yeah.
Even now, I think like at my age, so I'm 44, right? And it's like I feel like I almost have to do some type of weightlifting just to maintain. But just finding the time to do that because jiu-jitsu is more fun. So I'm going to go divert to jiu-jitsu.
Well, I agree. And I'm 41, about to hit 42. So
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know how to tie it in. Now I'm more looking into, like, I want to get more into yoga. I'd love to get into the boxing. Like, I don't really want to do anything that's too much weight now.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's a lot. I've had shoulders rebuilt and everything. I'm just not trying to lift heavy weight anymore. More flexibility is my game at this point.
Yeah, I do yoga once a week, once or twice a week with Jamie. So it's you get a lot out of that too. So I don't knock that one at all.
Yeah.
Look, prime example, Billy. I don't know if you guys mentioned that, but
Yeah.
Billy.
Yeah, we did talk about it.
Oh, okay. That man is so flexible for in his mid-50s.
I know.
This is ridiculous, man.
Well, we were talking. The question was like, do you see CrossFit you see longevity? Could someone have longevity in CrossFit? Like, we hope to have longevity in BJJ as an individual, right? So we're like, Billy's an example of that.
Yeah, Billy's a freak of nature, man. Knowing that guy is like, I'm like, well, if Billy can do it into his mid-50s, I know I can do it in the mid-50s.
That's what I tell myself.
Yeah. It's only a couple years away from you. So.
Yeah, whatever. You're still in your 20s, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it.
I'll be 30 this year.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
You guys are doing great, man. It's awesome.
I wish I would have started a little bit sooner now, though.
Yeah, I wish too. I think I got into it when I was 36 or. Whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like now looking at it. Like I said, I never played sports growing up, but after I was 22, 23 years old when I found my athleticism in CrossFit and whatnot. And growing up, I never played any sports. Like I said, my parents never forced me into any sports. But one day my dad was like, he's like, Travis, you have like a running back's body style. Like, why didn't you play football? Mm-hmm. I'm like, why didn't you get me into football,
right?
Dad? Like that's what you do as a parent. Like you see the potential of your child, and then you try to help him with it. Is
Sorry.
that a Tyranno, like a T-Rex
I don't know what's
upstairs?
going on up there.
Sounds like Jurassic
No
Park
idea.
upstairs.
Oh, you got to give Katie credit because she specifically asked if they can make noise up there.
They
Yeah.
did,
And
they
they've
did.
been pretty quiet. I didn't know
Yeah.
what it sounded like
Yeah.
down here. So not too bad. Not too bad.
So what would your, we asked everyone that's been on, what would your white belt tip be? Like, and it doesn't have to be technique-wise or anything like that. You know what I mean? So
The white belt tip.
Think about that. I don't know. What would you say? A student maybe 3 or 4 months in.
yeah, maybe a Will. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Super strong, or someone that's like a Charles, very timid. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what is one thing that you can give any white belt?
Well, see, yeah.
That's a tough question.
Again, like I always like everybody's different, right? So I would say one thing different to another. I think if you have somebody that's really strong, I would say just be patient. Don't try to muscle everything, right? And I would say to somebody that's not so strong, I would say be patient and understand that things will get better. I guess.
And wait for your opening.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I think I think like if you like in two cases, right? Like if you have somebody that's coming out the door and is timid and is not really sure of themselves, or doesn't have that athletic background, you can easily get turned off of it with the wrong introduction. I mean, I've seen schools that the new guy, hey, it's a new guy, and then just like hammering them, right? And it's a turnoff. Like I mean, I don't, nobody wants to feel like they're not being cared for, or they're not being introduced in a way that like
Conducive to them.
Yeah, conducive to them, and then also understand like this is actually good and healthy for you, right? Not just physically, but also you grow out of this, right? Like we talk about your level of uncomfort or discomfort, you can deal with it a lot better, like, and not just on the mat, but also off the mat too,
Right.
And so that's what I would say to that type of person is just to be patient, understand that with the knowledge and the experience, the knowledge will come with the experience, and part of the experience is having to bear being underneath somebody for an extended amount of time, right? And
getting uncomfortable or getting comfortable in the uncomfortable is what we say in CrossFit.
Yeah. And then like I guess like for the person that is confident, I would also say like be patient, because you're gonna get yours. You're gonna have the 120-pound guy that's able to get around all of your strength and put you in a situation where you're uncomfortable too.
Right.
And at that point, also be patient. Understand, like you don't have to get up and take it out on anybody. You know what I'm saying? It's just part of the process. So yeah, for everybody, I guess that's it then. Is just to be patient.
Be patient. That's a good one.
Just continue the journey is what it is, right? It's just like life. Just survive.
Yep.
And get to the next level. Just get to the next day. Get to the next second. Get to the next whatever it is.
Right.
But just stick with it.
That's what I tell people when I'm rolling with like brand new white belts, and they're like, I was like, all right, you want to roll? They're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, just think about surviving.
Yeah, just survive.
Like, just survive.
That was the goal when we started.
Yeah.
I just want to survive.
I just want to, like like we were talking about it with Nate. Like the first time I didn't get tapped by Cody, I was like, I won that one, got him. Like, you didn't win today, Satan.
I remember rolling with Billy when we first started, and I didn't get it when he would say it then, but he was like, "Whew, these white belts!" Like, because I think I was probably going like 120 miles an hour, like nonstop that entire 5 minutes.
Yep.
And now I get it. I'm like,
I thought I was
funny.
in shape until my first roll, my first actual 5-minute roll, and I was like, nope, looks like I'm going back to the drawing boards on this one. Like, it is fighting for your life is no joke.
Sure isn't.
And when you're finally put in that situation where someone that has just minimal experience is just toying with you, you realize like, well,
knowledge is power. Man.
Yeah,
like
it's crazy.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it's the equalizer, right? If you know how to use the environment around you, if you know how to use your body weight, if you know how to position your opponent in the so that gravity can help take over, like we were talking about earlier this week, the little guy can still generate a lot of pressure and a lot of power.
Well, I'm loving the iron pillow now. You should have never showed me that. I was like,
I'm like thinking, like, man, now I can just take a nap during class.
Well, there you
is
go. Like,
great.
survival, right?
you must have went over that with Cody and them before
did.
the class, because
Yeah.
he was doing that to me, but I
Yeah.
didn't know what he was doing, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Quit playing possum! Come on, open up!"
Yeah.
Because I was like trying to get an arm in there, and I was like, "He's too tight. I can't get anything in here."
But we were in Japan, man. There.
Are you gonna do the bear story?
No, I'm
Okay,
not gonna do the bear
all right,
story. I'm gonna talk about Marcus. He was a purple belt out there, and when we first started, all of us were white belts, so we would all just go after each other. And when we got to Japan, it was the first time we actually started rolling with higher belts. Yeah. And so they would just sit there and then, palms up and like a Buddha stance, like they're meditating.
Really throws me off,
right? And they're like, I'm like, are we gonna roll? They're like, yeah, go ahead and attack. And then I'm like, okay. And, the second I tried something, I was getting countered or whatever. And so experiencing that, I was like, I just have so much to learn, man. Like, it is crazy the amount of knowledge that is in jiu-jitsu. And no one's ever going to be the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no one's ever going to know everything. No one's ever going to have an answer for everything or have the best technique or whatever. But whatever works for you, right? Like, which kind of excites me because there's no wrong answer.
Yeah, well, for the listeners, like for if you're curious about the Iron, I don't know if I went to a seminar with John Frankel, and he has a bunch of content out there online. I don't know if he has anything specifically about the Iron Pillow, but it's just a body position from the bottom position, a body structure, I would say, right?
Yeah, that was
from
fantastic.
the bottom position.
Well, you saw the picture I found when I googled it.
Yeah. But it's so effective in survival that it almost frustrates your opponent to the point where they generate their own space that you can take advantage of, and you can time openings.
Yeah, that's what Cody did to me.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on? I can't get in here. So I just put myself in a bad position.
Yeah, and it forces the person on top to almost put themselves in a bad position.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's one of those things about the knowledge of jiu-jitsu and experience is that you can generate openings without doing anything.
Right.
With just, pure defense. And so your defense almost becomes an offense, right? So yeah, it's one of those mind-blowing kind of moments for me when he went over that.
Right. Yeah, that is so legit. Yeah. Like, there's it's so simple. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like you're and like what you talked about, right? If you want more pressure on your head, then you just kind of like a north-south, right? You just lift up a little bit on your toes. It doesn't take very much, and your defense is like instantly that much more fortified, and it's cool to have techniques like that, because I'm like, I'm going to do it to like a brand new guy and just like lay there and be like, I know your frustrations, man. I was there too. Just, figure it out.
You know what's funny too is when they're in that just like come attack me.
Yeah.
Like, so, and maybe still now, but I'm so reactive in jiu-jitsu. Like, it's hard to be the aggressor.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to basing everything I do off of what's happening to me. So being the aggressor is just different.
Well, and he talks about so John Frankel talks about like when you're in this position, this iron pillow, you end up funneling their movements into a certain place where will be, right? And if you know how to deal with those certain movements, or they're going to go to a certain place, then you can develop the counters to that, so that you can like time your movements, and then also take advantage of their off. You're almost off balancing them without doing anything. So,
what's your preferred way of learning? Is it going to be seminars or online or reading books, or like how do you grow in your position now as you're the black belt of our school?
I'm a reader, so and that's just like what I've always done, and it's not just with jiu-jitsu, but I read things and I can process that easier, I think, than watching the videos, and so it would be in this order. It would be reading, listening, and then watching. And I think that I could do that with jiu-jitsu now, just because I've seen enough that I don't necessarily need to watch it. I can hear what they're talking about, and for the most part, I can mentally picture what they mean. The video will help if it's something that I'm just not aware of. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the preferred method. But I love going to seminars, because the question and answers for seminars is I get so much out of that too.
Yeah.
Because that interaction is also really important.
Yeah.
For me to learn. But yeah, I mean, that's just in general. It's not just with jiu-jitsu. It's just with everything that I do. And everybody's going to be different, right? I mean, so it's really, I think it's really important. Like when you're growing up, and like our kids, we really need to help our kids figure this out.
Yeah.
Is like how do you process information, right? And because everybody's different, right? Our kids are going to be different than us too.
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever asked my kids.
I've never asked Charles.
I mean,
that.
have you asked yourself
You said
that?
that, and I'm like, how do I process it?
Yeah, how do you process information?
Oh, that's interesting. Like the easiest way for me to learn it is if I'm put in the position.
Yeah. But don't think just jiu-jitsu, right? Think in general. Like what is like when you went to school, were you frustrated in the lectures or were you frustrated with the reading? Where did you gravitate toward?
I was more I'd like to read it first and then I wanted to see it.
Yeah. And that's like where I'm at too,
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that if we don't understand where we're at with learning, then you almost are a subject to whatever method it comes to you, right? You don't control the way that that's being delivered, that you're receiving it, right? So if you know that you're a reader, I would say go get some books or go online and read the content first, and then go and look in the videos.
Yeah,
because the videos will make more sense to you too, right? Because you know what you're looking for. So.
Yeah, I'm a seeing and then doing guy.
Yeah.
I'm all 100% hands-on. I've been in the trades since I was 16, and the beautiful thing about being in the trades is the best way to get better at them is I'm a welder, right? There's no book that's going to teach you how to weld.
Right.
There's no lecture that's going to teach you exactly how to weld, right? It's all feeling. It's all like touch, and that's why I enjoy jiu-jitsu too, because there's that instant feedback.
Yeah.
Like, well, that didn't work. All right, not going to do that one again. You know what I mean? So. And that's the best way I learn is I have to do it. I have to trial and error. I try to tell Charles all the time, like making mistakes is not a bad thing, right? Like making mistakes is a necessity of life to learn.
Yeah.
Right. The problem where it comes from making mistakes is when you repeat them over and over again because you're not learning
from it. Yeah.
You're not learning from it, right? And then people get frustrated when you're doing the same thing over and over again because they think you're not listening. They think you're not paying attention, right? Yeah. And it could be 100% like you keep making the same mistake, right? But you have to learn from it because that is how you grow. I tell them all the time, like, I will never be mad if you make a mistake. I will never be mad, right? If it's an honest mistake, if you had no idea. Right. What I will get upset about if it's the third or fourth time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can't keep doing that, man. I've gone over this multiple times with you. You know what I mean? Like and it's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. It's like you're gonna pay for it if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again. You got to learn from it, or else there's a hole in your game. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, that's where I think that live rolling helps. Because if somebody does the same move to you 4 or 5 times in a row, you quickly realize, well, I'm not going to do this anymore because I keep doing this and I keep ending up here.
Right. Yeah.
Instant feedback.
Yeah, instant feedback. Yeah, and it's fun, man. Like I enjoy it. I when Charles first started, and watching him now, like he still has some of his same mannerisms that I'm like, oh man, come on, bro, stop doing that, right? But it's a night and day difference.
Yeah, and
the confidence that he's gained from it and whatnot, and it's awesome to see, because Charles is very timid. He's very introverted. He's goofy. He's out there, right? And so being able to watch him, especially during testing, or Jon and I talk about it all the time too. The day that you decided to put a butt whooping on the kids.
Oh yeah,
that was. I was just proud that he didn't quit and he was trying his hardest.
What I was saying.
I was looking over at him like, oh.
And so when we did that, it was just basically 45 minutes of calisthenics, and I was so impressed with. And I was yepping, not when you were saying that Charles was awkward. I was just saying yepping that like his development and his growth within this last year now. But like to be able to go through that entire like session. And go through all the exercises. Yep. Yeah, Charles did great. Like Olivia did great. At the end of it, Olivia was like, "I like that."
I was watching her. She was like, "Oh man."
I was a little bit worried that I might have like turned them off. Like
they were happy.
Charles left there the happiest he's probably ever. Really? I mean, I'm sure he doesn't want to do that all the time, right? But I think there's gratification in knowing that you can combat at that kind of adversity and the accountability that you instilled in them. Like it was one student that caused that, right? Like, And knowing that you guys are classmates, you guys are a school, you guys are all responsible for each other when it comes time to mat time. Yeah. And just because one person does it doesn't mean that not all of you are going to pay for it. You have to hold each other accountable.
That's actually how we got Dante in the class, talking to his mom.
Yep.
She's looking for discipline, and we used that example.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, they hold the all.
Yeah.
And they were like, we need that.
It was cascading. I would say like one person started it, and then the other person,
and then they're like,
"Oh, gonna get away. I'm gonna try to get." Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So it was almost like, okay, we're gonna put a stop to this right now.
And I love that.
Well, it's interesting the power that you guys have as the coaches, right? Yeah. So when I made an agreement with the kids when we got into jiu-jitsu. I was like, look, you guys don't quit, I don't quit. So if I don't quit, y'all can't quit. And that was the original deal, right? And it's almost 2 years into it now, right? Nice. So during that whole time, sometimes they're like, I'm not going. I don't want to go anymore. They're like, I don't want to do it. I'm quitting. And I went, that's fine. Make sure you tell Professor and George that you're quitting and why. Like, that's my deal, right?
Yeah.
So the first year, they never said that, right? Then they got into it where they would say it a lot. And I was like, that's fine. I'll bring you to class. You go ahead and tell them. And so now, like, they go. They want to go. I don't make them go. Now they're going because they want to go.
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
It's like that's like a huge thing. Like, it's not me anymore. It's because they want to go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Huge turnaround. Yeah.
Yeah, Charles still goes through the whole of I don't want to do it kind of thing. But I think it's just because he's a video game kid. He's like me. He loves playing video games. He loves staying home. I love staying home too. But but we talk about like the hardest part of showing up for class is showing up for class.
Exactly.
Right. Like so once you show up and you instantly feel better about doing it. And so I don't necessarily give him the option, but I don't tell him to go. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like he comes home like, hey, we got to get your gi. We got jiu-jitsu today. He's like, okay. He's like, it's Thursday. It's no gi, bud. No gi. He's like, okay, I'll just wear my sweats.
Man, they love no gi, by the way. They're going to be sad if that goes away.
No, it's not going away.
They love
I think they love no gi.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Oh, yeah. They ask me, is it no gi day?
No,
and I'm like, no, it's Tuesday. And they're like, oh.
And so Charles, and so the psyche of a child, as they slowly just kind of, they're less resistance to the what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like the hierarchy. I don't want to say hierarchy, but like the, you know what I'm saying? Like how jiu-jitsu, the structure. There we go. Yeah. The structure of like a martial arts, the structure of having someone else hold them accountable, right? Because as a parent, like you can attest to this, right? Like I don't want to be the only one that disciplines my child. Yeah. It takes a village. Yeah. Right. I want him to get that from somewhere else. I want him to look up to someone besides just me. Yeah. Right. There's other positive male figures out in the world that don't have to be me. Right. Like he could come home and complain to me about his coach. Mm-hmm. I want him to. You know what I mean? And then I want him to go and take out his frustrations with me in jiu-jitsu or something like that. You know what I mean? So
I tell parents all the time, like, feel free to use my name in vain if there is something that the kids, I really emphasize with our minions class, like what are our 3 rules, right? Be respectful, be clean, always try your best, right? So if they're not doing any of those things if they're doing something against those rules outside of class, then I tell them like use me as a tool, right? And same thing, right? I mean, I had parents like come and ask me to talk to their kids about certain things, right? Like even like being a bully and that kind of thing. And that's what we're there for. We're helping, like you said, we're there to help.
Yeah, it's a huge impact. You guys have a big role.
Yeah.
And it's I like being in that position, not because I can tell people what to do, but because it almost forces me to be more accountable than because I know that people are always watching me.
Yeah.
So like I said, like we are here as a another resource, right, for parents to kind of think about if they have to have these tough conversations. And it's like even what was it the other day, just being frustrated on the mat. I had a conversation with somebody about like not closing their mind off, right, and being open to different ways of doing things. You know what I'm saying? Because learning is learning, whether it's on the mat or whether you're at school or whether your
experience.
Yeah, you're watching TV, right? I mean, everything is a learning experience. But if you've already gone into that scenario thinking, I already know what I need to know, I'm not going to try anything else new, then it's you're almost closing the door on your own development. And yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hard to have that conversation as a parent because it's like, you want to just right to your kid, your own kid, but when and the child ends up kind of like
resenting
giving you the hand,
bit,
giving you the hand, right? Yeah, I don't need another lecture from my mom and dad,
right?
Like, but okay, this coach is going to lecture me. Oh, okay, maybe I'll be a little bit more receptive,
right.
So.
And that's like when it came to promotion time, we were driving to class. I think it was last Tuesday or Thursday. It was the promotion day, or maybe it was Tuesday because it was on the way there, and I was trying to like tell Charles like look at your belt, man. You have 2 stripes on there. They're not on there because they were given to you. They're on there because you earned them, right? And I was like, how hard you try is how much of thank you professor can give to you, right? Like the way professor says thank you to you in class is by promoting you, right? Like by giving you a stripe, by letting you learn more technique, by giving you a new belt, right? Yeah. So the harder you try, the more of a thank you he can give you. I was like, he's not going to give you stripes and belts and stuff like that just because you're showing up. Like that's not how it works.
Right.
You have to give effort, man. And I was like, so if you want, you can become a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu if you put forth the effort. Right. Like, and so I'm just trying to instill in him, like, you need to show up, right? It's important to show up, but it's more important to show up and try. Yeah. Right. Like just because you're there doesn't mean that you're going to get recognition. For the kids, you know what I mean? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So instilling that hard work and work ethic into his head, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's school right now is a battle. I'm sure you understand like, well, you don't because you have like straight A students. But with Charles, he doesn't. He challenges school. You know what I mean? And I'm like, man, like how do I get it across to him that it's like your teacher is still an adult. Your teacher is still someone that you need to show respect to. You know what I mean? But it sounds like he's about to get some talking to from professors.
Yeah, we can take that one offline. Yeah, just let me know. What's going on.
But it's like I said, like it's good to have your kids in it to have that accountability from someone else. Like I absolutely love it. Like I think he as many coaches as he can have in his life is just going to benefit him. Like I was like, you got to talk to Coach George. We were showing up late one day because Charles was taking forever to get his gi and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, man, before you step on the mat, since we're going to be 5-10 minutes late, you're going to have to request to join class from Professor or George, and you have to apologize for showing up late. And he's like, why? I was like, because you're wasting their time. I was like, it's rude to waste their time when they're trying to teach you, when they're trying to better you. Yeah. He's like, well, I'm not that type of person. I was like, I was like, well, you're about to be. like, you need to show people that respect because people are, if they're trying to better you as a person, you need to show them the respect of being there, on time and then and giving your full undivided attention to them.
And it's taking accountability for what you did, right? I mean, if they're late and there's a reason that they're late, they have to understand that, okay, this is why I'm late. And if you can't explain that to somebody else, especially your professor, then maybe you don't understand what the importance of that is. Right. So yeah, by all means, use this.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially after like we said, like the whole 45-minute IT session. It's like, do you want them to do that again?
All I know is I love testing week. I've never seen them kids so tuned in.
Oh man,
I don't even Drew's out there. She's like, stop playing. I was like, what? Look at this. Drew's like, no playing around, because I told her, like, Drew, you better not be playing around in class, and when you see other people playing, you better tell them to stop playing. Yeah. And then she was on it all week. She was like, They try to get her to play. She's like,
yeah, she got that strike, man. She's ready. Yeah. She's using it. She's
like, watching Charles's face light up afterwards. He walked over to me after the class was done. I was like, bro, and he's like, you know what I mean? It's real cool to see. But yeah, it's the same thing. Like watching him during testing week, I was like, Laura Doe was standing next to me, and I was like, babe, what is Charles doing over there? And she's like, I don't know. What is he doing? I'm like, he's moving great. Like he's
it's like they kicked
shrimping
it up a
perfect.
notch.
Yeah, he's like, I was like, that's like a dang good. That's a really good shrimp.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, his forward roll. I was like, I didn't know this kid could do this. I've never seen. Usually in class, he's like,
I know.
I stole his comment now every time I bring him to class. I'm like, just remember, you guys are always being tested. I tell them every time now when we get there, I'm like, yeah, you're always being tested.
yeah. Is that you mentioned it earlier, right? Like one of the growing pains is now you're trying to go more towards like when they're ready instead of like a once a quarter thing or whatever.
Yeah, and it's So I'm actually like for the adults, I'm gonna do that for sure. There's no question. But one of the challenges of the kids class is that you do have to recognize effort, because otherwise, like a lot of kids will lose
we talk
motivation.
about that. Yeah.
Right. And so, but also you have to balance that with, the meaning of getting the next stripe or the next belt, right? It has to be meaningful. Otherwise, it's just, I showed up 10 times this quarter. I'm going to get,
Yep.
good to go, right? No, it's not. It has to be more than that. So finding that right balance is a challenge. But but yeah, that's just something that we're working toward. But yeah, we're definitely going to do it more frequently. I think doing it whenever instead of like, we tried the whole, okay, it's December and then, it's April. Okay. We'll do it like 3 times a year, maybe. Why I'm kind of starting to shy away from that is because it makes it more time-based as opposed to performance-based. And if we have it more frequently, if you don't get it, then there's a reason why you didn't progress as quickly as this other person did, and if you recognize that, then maybe that can be the motivational tool too, as opposed to actually just receiving it.
Agreed.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and no one wants to feel like they got a participation medal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, I want that, I want that feeling that Charles had with receiving that third stripe to really be, I really earned it.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Been
And even
waiting
as
for
adults,
Yeah.
we want that same feeling.
Yeah.
Like, man, I've been kicking butt lately. Like, but I gotta wait till next April. Like, dang.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No offense. Like, I'm not.
But that's the thing too, right? Is that there are timing rules in the IBJJF rules belting system, and like my professor was like, he was close to it, and but when it came down to it, it's like, well, when you're ready, you're ready.
Yeah. So who would you call your professor? Would you say Ivan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you've studied under him the longest.
The longest. Yeah. I mean, so when I was in Hawaii, I want to say I studied there maybe like a couple of years, and that was it. It started off as Gracie Baja, and then he transferred it over to Alianse, and that was under Rex Barnum, and then went to Alabama for a year. That was under it was actually an MMA school, and the guy that was teaching, he was a blue belt at the time too, but it was just a small community that was like one of the schools that were open there. Right? Was he blue belt? Yeah. He was a blue belt. So we were like blue belts learning under each other, right? Trying to teach each other. But his Bill Boutwell, but awesome program. Awesome. Like I think he might be a black belt now, but back in the day, like his kids program was awesome. Like
Good.
Yeah, because he did not just jiu-jitsu with them, but he also did like MMA and striking and all that. I mean, I think his background is actually like Krav Maga. Oh, that's cool. But
I've always wanted to try
I've
that.
always wanted to try Krav Maga too.
But I mean, I think that as far as confidence building for kids, especially that age, I mean, he did a great job with that, and the kids had so much fun. And even the grappling, like they got a lot out of it in the year that they were there. And then we went to Okinawa, and we were with Ivan for 4 years. There was a year gap between leaving Okinawa and coming up here, and I was actually training in Chula Vista Jiu-Jitsu with Professor Ron and Professor George over there. So they had opened up a class, and that's a great school too if you guys ever have a chance to go down there. But it's only maybe like 20 minutes away from in old downtown Chula Vista.
Oh yeah.
So great school, great guys, great vibe, and also like great instruction too. So other options for you.
I forgot I was going to ask.
Yeah, I forgot what the question was too.
Yeah, me too. It's like we kind of just kept going on to that. Like,
You asked him who his instructor was. Who
Oh.
do you think?
oh,
he was?
yeah. So are you, as the school goes on, are you kind of like just forming like
Evolving, I would say. It's
You're-
always evolving. Yeah.
yeah, are you, but what I mean is like as we evolve, are you kind of not necessarily a lesson plan or like a written procedure for the gym, but are you kind of like taking notes and like you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I like this, I don't like that, like
Yeah.
we're gonna do this and whatnot, like trial and error kind of things? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at like we actually have a Google Drive between all of us. Like all the coaches are attached to this Google Drive, and I have on there like long range and training, short plan training, short range training plans, long range training plans. Yeah. That's the type of stuff I was, and I try to give it some structure because you know, it's like that whole crawl walk run kind of thing, right? I mean, if you jump between things too much, or if you try to jump into things too quickly, then the training won't be as effective. You know what I'm saying? So so that is there, but I'm also finding that it is almost situation dependent. It depends on who's in the class at the time, right? I mean, if you have a higher a group that just happened to be there with more experience, then that curriculum might not necessarily be what you want, or even vice versa, right? Like, you know, maybe all your beginners just showed up that day for some reason, so the plan might have to adjust on the fly. And a lot of times we'll have these plans, but we won't get through them all just because, you know, the technique was, or not necessarily the technique, but the concept that we're trying to learn was just that you just need more time with it, and that's okay. But I think as a coach and as a teacher, it's important for us to recognize like where our students are at, right, and adjust based off of that. Having a plan is good to start off with, but you know, in execution, you have to be able to adjust and kind of keep track of where you've been.
It's a good answer.
that's a really good answer. I'm like thinking through everything. I'm like, man, that's it. Really
I know
good.
everybody loves where it's at right now. I think the last
Yeah.
week and a half, we're like, Jesus, I'm exhausted. That was great.
Yeah, and you know, we did that, and I liked it a lot, but I also recognized that we had some new people there that were, you know, I mean, just look in the face, I'm like, oh man, I don't know if we'll
Yeah.
see them here next week, right?
No, well, I think you guys have been like, at least lately, because we saw the same thing, you know, and I was
Yeah.
like, man, I feel bad for them because they're
Yeah.
jumping in this. They didn't know what was going on, but you guys are kind of like pulling them to the side, or you were, and somebody
Yeah.
was, and I was
Yeah.
like, that's
And
great. 'Cause
And I
that's
think
what they
that's
need.
what the plan is that, you know, we'll do, I still like the structure of like shortened
warm-ups.
warm-ups and discussion time, and then longer live rolling. And I think we're going to keep that format, but at some point we might have them do like half of that live rolling, and we'll actually go into, okay, these are the basic movements that you need to get.
So we're for new people. Do you guys have in the horizon like an on-ramp or like a beginner's course that you guys want to do? Or I know it's kind of hard because you all have day jobs, and you know, we have 3 coaches,
Yeah.
4 if Cody's in the class, you know what I mean? And then Cody's more of a student than coach nowadays, you know what I mean? So
Well, yeah, I mean, he's like getting pulled in a lot of different directions.
yeah.
But I think to answer your question, we are always building like curriculums, right? And every class that we take, we have captured like that, what we did during that class, right? And we actually like, and I will put my comments in and before and at the end of that to say, okay, this is what we learned, and this is kind of where we want to move toward. And I think I get a lot out of that. I don't know if like the other coaches get as much out of it, but we always have something to go back to, like for like and I do have like a fundamentals type, like I wouldn't say curriculum, but it's just really just kind of like thoughts on things that I would do for the beginning people, or we do for the beginning people. But to have a separate class, I think is kind of early for us, just because we don't have enough coaches right now, right?
So one thing that we saw, and just to give you an idea, when we were in Japan, the other jiu-jitsu class that happened at the same time as us, he only had one black belt, and his name was Jerry.
Yeah.
But for his beginner's class, it was a 30-minute class before his actual class, and all their blue belts taught it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Like, it was,
Yeah, I thought about doing something like that too, but you know, like the fundamentals, like to me, like I think like black belts have to teach fundamentals.
Oh yeah.
Because otherwise you have potential of learning bad habits. because there's so much nuance, right? I mean, we talk about that, right? Like the movement or the placement of half an inch can generate so much power, so much pressure, right? So much leverage. And so if you don't emphasize those kind of things in the beginning, then and that comes with time, so, and if you don't like I said, if you don't emphasize that in the beginning or correct those things in the beginning, then it's harder to undo or correct after 5 years of them doing something.
Right. So it kind of playing devil's advocate then.
Yeah.
Like, what if we had, say, just the blue belts teaching fundamentals, but they had to go through a Saturday class with you every week.
Yeah.
Right. And of just the pure fundamentals, like, okay, so for the fundamentals class this week, what I want you guys to teach is this. And then kind of like how you do for like the general class, but just for fundamentals, right? Like, do you think that would be beneficial?
I think it would. It's just like, when would we fit it into the schedule?
That's true, right? Once again, because you guys have day jobs and families and everything, and that's why it's just like ideas in my head too. Because
I mean, are you guys interested in that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, even when I was rolling with somebody the other day, they didn't know what an elbow escape was.
Yeah,
and I was trying to show it to him. And I was like, shit, I don't even know if I want to show him.
I know there's like
I don't want to show him.
Yeah,
like I went through it, so I know how to do it, but I'm probably not the person that's going to be the best at showing him how to do it.
I am always interested. I mean, I'm a coach at heart,
Yeah.
right? Like, I've spent the last 5 years coaching people from not knowing how to do a proper squat to, competing in sport. And so I've always been interested in it. And my favorite thing to do is to teach fundamentals. Like, but the thing I always worried about is not being on the same page.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's where you mentioned as like there's the nuances and stuff like that, and that kind of goes into like, well, if you teach what nuances you're looking for, right, then you can kind of pass it on. Like Cody had a really hard time with this for a long time, where he was he was kind of didn't want to give the reins to someone else because he was afraid that they weren't going to do exactly what he wanted, right? And then he kind of slowly just started like giving more to other people and then just correcting them as they went, and then kind of like polishing them to what he was looking for. So now all of his coaches, like, there's different ways we all coach, but we all have the same concept and ideas behind the goal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then we kind of, the way we teach is the way we teach it, but there's points of performance that we all need to hit with each movement, whether it's a clean, whether it's a snatch, whether it's a squat or whatever. You know what I mean? But the way you teach it is one way, but as long as we're not counterintuitive to what everyone else is saying, then it's kind of it's good,
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think we're getting there. I think that we need to like have that base, right? So it's basically what you're talking about is like almost like discipleship, right?
Yeah.
Is that, as the leader, you focus on like your kind of mid-level support staff, like staffers, right? Like you basically focus on that level, and then they'll get all the word out to the rest of the group, right? I mean, I think that we're starting to get to that point. I mean, we're kind of like forced to we had like who we had at the beginning, right? I mean, we had a couple of blue belts at the time, as they should, they rose to the level of being able to coach, right? I mean, now I think we're getting to the point now where we can actually do something what you guys are thinking about, or talking about here. So definitely, I appreciate that, even having this conversation, because I've been thinking about it, but it wasn't like something that we look at long-term growth, but it's something that I think we can accelerate sooner than I was originally had anticipated.
Yeah, once again, kind of going back to the whole like we're a brand new school, right? So we have to home grow a lot of stuff in order for our meadows to be fruitful. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like we're all growing so much together. It's like we don't have that base of like we have you and George and Logan, right? But even Logan and George are relatively fresh in the jiu-jitsu world. You know what I mean? Like like
Logan, I think both of them have been around for a while. It's just that I think that having more like we're right now, like I think with the growth part of it, we're basically really for the last year we were looking at, okay, what do we even need to teach?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Like we need even like lesson plans.
Right.
So like I like a year ago I was spending for every hour in class I was actually had like an hour at least outside of class getting ready for it, right? Either coming up with the curriculum or even like just practicing the moves just so that I'm showing you guys the right thing.
Right.
And then on top of that is figuring out, okay, like, there's fundamentals in jiu-jitsu, but what does that even mean? Right. So there was a lot of homework that needed to happen. And so it's kind of like we get that going, and now at the same time we have like that, like I could start looking outside of just like the curriculum and what we're teaching into, okay, how are we going to do it with the people that we have, and so we started introducing the coaching. We started building a coaching staff, right? And so we're still in that coaching staff building phase, and yeah, I mean, like now that we have like even our baseline of like white belts getting ready for blue, like that's kind of where like the next step in our evolution. So yeah, this is good. This is a good conversation for me.
No, I enjoy it. And like you mentioned, I think it was the first time that because you were going to Port Townsend for all that stuff, and then you kind of mentioned it, and you're like, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like if no one's speaking up or no one's having that
Yeah,
conversation, then you really don't know what's working and what's not working,
Yeah.
right? So I was worried having you on. Like I was like, I don't want him to think like we're attacking him or like we're trying to force our ideas on you.
No,
or
we
anything
just
like
talk.
that. Yeah, I just wanted to talk, and like just hear your opinion on stuff, and like I'm sure there's other people out there that were asking the same questions that. They're like, I just don't know, right?
No,
so,
well, I mean, I actually don't get a lot of feedback. Like, I think I look for it, and I like try to kind of read body language and that kind of thing. But I mean, I get a lot of positive things, right? But what I want to know is like, what mistakes are we making, or what are people frustrated with, and that kind of thing. And I think eventually I kind of figured out the whole belting thing. But yeah, I mean, I want to hear that. I want to, because it's hard to improve if you don't know what people are frustrated with, right? So yeah, I mean, by all means, like definitely bring that stuff up. The forum matters, of course, right? I mean, but for the most part, I try not to be like too defensive on that kind of thing. I mean, everybody's entitled to their own opinion,
Right.
But I also appreciate the fact that everybody has their own perspectives too, right? And your opinion is going to be different than mine because I have a different perspective, right? And I have to appreciate that of yours too, right? So yeah, by all means, it's all a conversation, and we won't grow, we won't get better if we don't have that conversation.
yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's been a whole lot of fun talking to you about it and everything like that. So.
Man, I didn't know he was so well versed in all those other martial arts. Huh?
Yeah, I know, right?
Watch out.
Like
Well versed in life.
Just been through a few things.
I'm still learning. Man.
So what do you do? What do you do for fun outside of jiu-jitsu then? Like hanging
What else
with the
is
family?
there?
If it's not jiu-jitsu, I don't do it. No.
No. What else do we do? Well, it's just hanging out with friends, hanging out with family. Really, family. Like, we don't really go out that much. I mean, we'll go to, we'll catch the ferry to Seattle every once in a while, but it's always like with the family. So yeah, I mean, I just like hanging out with people. It's all good.
You don't like ride bikes or?
We'll ride bikes, but not to ride bikes. I ride bikes just to hang out with people.
Do you guys go on a lot of vacations or as a family?
Yeah, we do everything together. Like I think the last so after I retired, I didn't work for a year, and like for the first 2 months, we basically drove around the country, around
cool.
the U.S. Yeah. And then for the next 8 months after that, we're waiting for this house to open up. We own the house already, but we had renters in it. And so we were just hanging out with family in San Diego. And so we would go fishing every once in a while. We would, go do picnics and all that kind of stuff. But to me, it wasn't really so much what we were doing. It's just like the people that we're hanging out with, And that's how it is with everything. Like I really don't care what we do, Well, I mean, I like to be outside, right? I mean, I like to be like in an environment where we could actually talk to each other, You know, I mean, I like movies and stuff like that, but you know, sometimes it just gets a little bit loud in there and you can't really talk. But yeah, everything else
That's the beautiful part about a podcast is like it's literally you
forces
get to
you,
talk.
right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get to just talk, have
You
a
have
conversation.
Yeah.
You know, you can have some bubbly, maybe a beer or two.
So, you know, we're talking about like one of the next ones we're going to do is we're going to have
Yeah.
like Olivia, we'll bring it to the gym. We'll have
Yeah.
the kids interview the kids and ask questions for
Oh, that would be great.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, man.
yeah.
I'm a little bit nervous about that one.
What do you think about your coaches?
Yeah. So, you know, I always tell myself, like, you know, I don't really care what other people think about me. But I think hearing that one, I might be like, oh, man.
Let me turn that up.
Yeah. That
And
one
we're going to rewind that. What did she just say? I'm she's going to do have the burpees for that.
No, not like that. But I just, you know, they like kids are so
They're
so honest.
Yeah, they're brutal. They're brutal.
They are,
Yeah,
man.
and the brutality. I mean, it's good, but you know, like sometimes as an adult, I think that we see it as disrespectful. But you know, it's like, maybe they have a point.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of force ourselves to listen.
Yeah, Drew came up to me after we had Olivia on accident on the podcast.
The last one, yeah.
On our last, our last one. Yeah.
Last, yeah.
Yeah, and so Drew came up to me. She's like, Travis, you had Olivia on the podcast, but I wasn't. I was like, Drew was an accident. I had to go answer the phone, and Olivia was just there, so she was talking to your dad. We need to get me on the podcast. I was like, you know what, Drew, you're right. I'll have my people talk to yours.
How old is Drew again?
7.
7. There you go. 7.
Yeah, little ball energy right there. Yeah, we have a bunch of different ideas and plans behind what we want to do with the podcast, and really the biggest thing that we always talk about is like we just want to sit down and talk to people about jiu-jitsu and have a drink, or just not even jiu-jitsu, but life in general and just how they see things. Like right now, our main goal is pretty much just jiu-jitsu because that's what we're really into.
Yeah,
but
it's
if it evolves into more, then it evolves into more. So
Yeah,
like
I mean, it's a good opening. You know, it's a good opener, right? Because we talked about more a lot, and you know, we talked a lot more, I think, than jiu-jitsu did.
Right, absolutely, and that's the beautiful thing, right? Is like you mentioned, jiu-jitsu is life, right? But like it honestly kind of goes into everything, right? Like it's the mentality, the physical aspect, and all that stuff too. So it was a great conversation. Man.
All right,
Thank you for having me.
All right. Is that it?
I think that you got anything for him?
No, I don't. Thank
It's
you.
been 2
Thank you
hours.
for coming on.
Oh, it's been 2 hours.
It's been
It
2
has.
hours.
Oh
I
my
don't know if
gosh.
you got to go do other stuff, but
you want to give a shout out to anyone or anything like that? You know, now's your chance.
Well, you know, I think just like so we like Cody, like we gotta give a shout out to Cody just
yeah,
for
absolutely,
being like giving us the venue to be what we are, do what we do,
right.
And we definitely have to like give a shout out to like George and Logan because like I don't think you guys realize like how much George like this he really looks out for you guys, like
That's
the
good.
school as a whole, right? Not just like the students individually, but like as a whole. Like he'll actually like kind of keep me in check sometimes on, hey, you might want to take a look at this, or you might want to pay attention to this area over here. And it's always like not it's always for like the benefit of everybody. So definitely you know, our coaching staff. And then, you know, everybody else, like I mentioned some names, like kind of who was out there, like kind of helping me personally in my growth. But always you gotta you know, the guy upstairs, but also like for anybody that has longevity in jiu-jitsu, you always have to like recognize like the family, right? The kids, especially the wife, like Jamie, the kids, like so Jaden, Austin, Jada, and then Jamie, just because like for us to do what we do and like just like especially in the beginning, like, you know, we give a lot of our family time away for us to do our own development, like our own personal development, right? And sometimes it's for our own sanity. We need to do that because, you know, it helps us like kind of reset everything, right? But it comes at a cost, and usually it's the family that has to give up their time. So yeah, I mean that's kind of like some of the thing about for everybody is that like, there is as much as we grow and we get out of it, like, there's some sacrifice in there that we have to recognize too, especially if you have a family.
True.
Well, hey, thank you, and Professor, so much
Thank
for
you
coming
guys,
on,
too,
man.
yeah.
There was Time flew by. Holy crap! I can't believe it was 2 hours. Thanks, John,
man.
for having us.
You're not
at
gonna
your
keep it for
beautiful
2
house.
hours. You're not gonna post a 2 hour.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Are you serious?
The feedback is they prefer them longer, so they can listen to them over the week.
People enjoy,
Oh,
like
man.
listening to them like throughout a couple days.
Oh man,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna make sure my kids listen to the whole thing.
Sit down, write notes, tell me what you
That's
thought.
right.
So, hey guys, one more time. Big thing too. If you guys have listened this whole way, then you're going to hear this. We are selling merch now. So if you guys are interested in buying an Elbows Tight Podcast hoodie, go ahead and hit us up on our Facebook page, and then one of our El Presidente of social media, she will take your size and what you want down, and then she'll talk to you about payment and everything like that. So. She's the one that's dealing with all that, but we are coming out with merch. If you look at our Instagram page and our Facebook page, then you can see what the sweater looks like. Things are comfortable. I literally haven't taken it off since
You've been wearing it 3 days straight.
3-4 days straight. I've like gotten like beer on it. I think my dog threw up on it. It's like I've did jiu-jitsu in it. It's great. I'm not taking it off. I'm wearing it everywhere. People are going to know I have a podcast. So if you guys want to do that, also go ahead and check out the Facebook page. But thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Professor, once again. Thank you, John. And you guys have a fantastic time. Remember, no oil checks here.